Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show, all about movies.
You're listening to the Sam Price Show, and today my guest is award-winning director Roger Michell. Welcome to the show, Roger.
Thank you, Jan. Nice to be here.
It's a pleasure having you on the show. You have directed some of my all-time favorite movies, and so I'm really excited to have you on the show talking about your brand new movie, Blackbird, starring some of my favorite actors and actresses, Susan Sarandon and Sam Neill and Kate Winslet. What a great cast.
I know, it's incredible. I mean, everyone a winner. There's only eight people in this film, but they're all outstanding actors who give an incredible ensemble performance, I think.
Yes, they do. I have to tell you, I started crying early on in the film. From the moment I think Kate Winslet showed up, I just was nonstop tears.
Really? Oh, my God.
Yes.
Oh, my God. It was like a 17-tissue movie for you.
Yes, definitely.
17 Kleenex movie. Well, in a way, it is like this film is like a machine that's designed to make grown men cry. You know, it is a sad film, but also I'm glad to report that it's got lots of jokes in it. It's very funny. The characters are very funny, and there's lots of joy in the film, I think, and a kind of joy for life. And although it's a film that's ostensibly about death, it's really, I think, a film about life, about learning how to be alive.
I agree. And, because so often when we're in the midst of things, we forget to live. And when we're finally faced with our demise, which we all are going to have, we perhaps learn to live more in the moment, which is a great lesson to be learning anyhow, is to be present and to enjoy what we have. So tell me how this, you want to give the listeners a little idea of this film, what the synopsis of the movie is. Yeah,
so it's all set over one weekend, and it's all set in one house, a beautiful house at the end of the road in the middle of nowhere by the sea somewhere on the East Coast. And a family are gathering to witness and to celebrate the voluntary death of the matriarch, played by Susan Sarandon. So Susan Sarandon suffers from a disease. Her character suffers from a disease for which there's no cure, and she has decided that she wants to end her own life. And what's good about the film, I think, one of the great things about the film, is that all the debates about whether she should or she shouldn't do this have happened. They've all happened before the film starts. So everyone in the family is kind of signed up to, this is the right thing to do for her. She's made her choice, and we're going to support her choice. And then what happens is that as the family all gather, as is the way with families, all kinds of skeletons start rattling out of cupboards, and the weekend takes a few odd turns. Let's put it like that.
Yes. What I loved about it is, I don't want to, we kind of know what's going on, but, that they recreate Christmas. And Christmas is such a charged, supercharged time for many people, and for families. Lots of things come up when you finally gather. Maybe it's the once a year that you get to gather and come together, and the holidays can bring all kinds of things up. And I love that this film does exactly that with Christmas.
Yeah, I think during COVID, probably a lot of families have been experiencing both the wonder and bliss of being locked up together, and also the kind of agony and the problems. We all know that all kinds of terrible things happen over the Christmas holidays, because families are thrown together for 3 or 4 days without any remission or without any relief from each other. Families are difficult, aren't they? Families are the source of all life, but also most families have tensions and complications within them, and this family is no exception.
Exactly. Exactly. Kate Winslet. I just adore her too. Gives a wonderful performance here. How did you attract this cast? Who came on aboard first? And because you've got, Sam Neill and Susan Sarandon and Kate Winslet and the rest of the cast, Lindsay Duncan. They're all just absolutely wonderful. And here they are, again, like a family thrown together for the shooting of this film. How did that all work, and who did you attract first?
Well, I got Kate first. Kate was the first one to jump on board. And it's great if you're making a film and you get Kate Winslet on board first. That really helps you attract, the people around her. And it was actually one of the easiest films I've ever cast. People were really keen to do it. I think the prospect of working on such an ensemble piece, almost like a chamber piece, in one location so intensely, was an attractive prospect. And it certainly was like that. When we were shooting the film, we all lived within half a mile or so of that house. We weren't doing anything else. At weekends, the cast were all sort of living out of each other's pockets, and we became very, very close, almost like a sort of hostage situation. It's a bit like we all were suffering from Stockholm syndrome. And we were also able to shoot the film more or less in story order, which made it a much more... I don't know, most films you have to shoot out of order. You end up shooting the climax in the first week, and because of the availabilities of the actors or the availabilities of the locations. So there's something great about being able to start this film shooting literally the very first shot of the film, and I think everyone benefited from that.
Oh, I think so too, probably. And the house is such a big aspect of this film. How did you find it? Because the home is beautiful. How did you find the home that you shot this film in?
I looked everywhere, and in fact, Kate Winslet suggested that this place existed quite close to where she lives, and I thought, oh well, that's that. She's only saying that so she doesn't have to leave home during the shoot. But eventually I did go and see this place, and she was right. It was absolutely extraordinary, and it is sort of like another character in the film, the nice character. Yeah.
It is. It's a beautiful home. It really is a beautiful home. So this was shot in England then? It was, yeah. It was in the south of England. Just gorgeous, just gorgeous. So how did, with this cast that worked so well, what was the most difficult part of shooting this film? Because you did shoot it chronologically, and almost everybody's in almost every scene too. There's some that aren't. Right. But
yeah, which is another unique component, I think, of the film. I think the hardest thing was stopping people laughing. Actually, there was so much laughter on set. They were such a spirited bunch of actors, and they absolutely fell for each other. But by the end of the film, we all got tattoos of a blackbird. Did you know that?
Oh, no, I did not know that. All the
cast and myself, this was Kate's idea. Susan threw a little drinks party on the last day of the shoot, and Kate arranged for a tattooist to arrive. So we all got tiny tats of a blackbird. It's the only tat I've ever had in my life, let alone a tat of any of the films I've ever directed. So we're all proud bearers of this little squiggle on us, somewhere on our beings. Yeah.
I was going to ask you, where is yours? Where's your blackbird?
I can tell you without embarrassment, because mine is on the inside of my forearm. But I wouldn't like to say where everyone else has landed.
Oh, wonderful. For you, what was the meaning of the title of this film, Blackbird?
Well, that kind of evolved by accident. At one stage, there was the Beatles song was in the film. The Paul McCartney Blackbird song was in the film. And then we decided to cut out the song, but we left the title as a temporary title. And then during the shoot, we kept trying to think of the right title for the film. And in fact, we had a competition for the cast and crew. The prize was a case of champagne for the best title. And thousands of entries arrived anonymously. And none of them seemed to be quite as good as Blackbird. So in the end, it felt like the title kind of descended upon the film. And it now, to me, seems to represent the spirit of Susan's character. I mean, there are blackbirds that you see flying in the film, and there's Blackbird's song that you hear in the film. And the very last moment of the film, when Sam has left the shot, and you're just left with this shot of the house, and you hear this blackbird singing in the dead of night, seems to represent the spirit of Susan's character. That's how we ended up with that title.
It is beautifully shot too. The cinematography I thought was really wonderful. Talk a little bit about that.
Well, that's my brilliant and long-term collaborator, Mike Ely, and he was faced with this house filled with glass. You know, practically every way you look, there's glass. And we didn't want to shoot it day for night, or we wanted to shoot it for real. So we used as much available light as possible. And at night time, those big plate glass windows just turn into mirrors. So that presented all kinds of problems, which Mike was very brilliant at avoiding. And like with any film, you know, I wanted to have particular rules about the way in which I shot it. So on this occasion, there's hardly any camera movement. In fact, I think there's one camera move within the first hour of the film. I wanted it to be quite compositional and static, and let the actors come and go in front of the frame. And it obviously involved staging these scenes with 8 actors quite carefully. I wanted it to feel democratic. I didn't want it to feel like it was one person's story. It was kind of all of their story. So, that's how we approached it.
Well, it's beautifully done in that respect too, and also I loved the score by Peter Gregson. The use of the cello in this is just perfect, you know, for the mood of the film.
I'm glad you like it. Yeah, I think it's a wonderful score. Absolutely.
I do too.
Yeah,
I do too. Have you worked with him in the past?
No, I didn't. I didn't know Peter, and I started just laying up some of his recordings against an early cut of the film, and thought they worked so well that I then arranged to meet Peter and eventually asked him to do the whole score. I mean, he's a very accomplished celloist himself. He's a composer of many things, but also a kind of arranger of, particularly of Bach, which he rearranges in the most thrilling ways. And he's constantly off around the world touring and performing, and he's started to do films. You know, I think he's exceptionally talented.
Yes. And as I said, it just adds so beautifully to the mood of this film. This movie premiered last year at the Toronto Film Festival. And when it premiered, you had something that happened during the premiere. Can you talk a little bit about that?
That was terrible. I can hardly even bear to mention it. So that we premiered the world premiere of the film, this vast theatre in Toronto. I can't remember the name of the theatre, but I think it's like over 1,000 seats. And it was playing beautifully, and everyone was laughing and crying in equal measure in exactly the way that you would want. A huge amount of the cast was there, And then about 5 minutes before the end of the film, somebody in the front started to faint or to have some kind of seizure, or I don't know. And I was aware of some kind of kerfuffle. People sort of fanning him, and people starting to get up, and people starting to call for a doctor, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so they stopped the film, and they brought the lights up. And this unfortunate person, whoever he or she was, sort of eventually, actually, they got to their feet and walked out, surrounded by sort of friends. And by then, the spirits of the film. Can you imagine the spirits of the film down the toilet by then? And so the lights went down, and we watched the last 5 minutes of the film. I mean, it was so frustrating and so annoying. I mean, and bizarrely, it's happened to me recently in the theatre. I mean, I'm a theatre director as well, and it happened to me recently. I did a play at the National Theatre where somebody was very ill in the last 5 minutes of a play.
Oh, no.
So I just want them to either die quietly and stay in their seats, or just shut up for another 5 minutes, hold their breath.
Yeah, nothing worse than, to have the mood of your film, especially this kind of a film where, to have the whole mood broken up by that experience. Awful.
Utterly appalling.
So now this film is coming out. So where can people see Blackbird?
Well, I don't have the list in front of me, but I know it's in theatres. It's in selected theatres in various cities across the US, and it's on VOD.
Okay,
I don't have all the details before me, but I think it's going to be widely available from the 18th.
Great, wonderful, yes. Great. Now, you just, we're going to change the subject a little bit. You have another new film coming out that premiered at the Venice Film Festival, The Duke. That's right. Starring the incomparable Helen Mirren and Jim Broadbent, who I love and adore, and Matthew Good, who I also love and adore.
Oh, yes. Yeah.
Great cast. So do you want to talk about that? And also, did you go to the Venice Film Festival?
I did. I was there for the weekend. I just came back on Monday.
So how was that?
It's absolutely amazing to be in Venice. I mean, it briefly suggested that things could get back to normal. I mean, we watched the films in these huge theatres, which were only allowed to be half full, but that's still 500 or 600 people. So that's pretty exciting. It's the first time I'd seen my film, The Duke, with an audience of any sort. I'd only seen it in cutting rooms or very small viewing theatres before. And Venice was very well organised. I mean, you had your temperature taken about 20 times a day. There were checks everywhere, but there was lots of human contact. I had hundreds of meetings with journalists, and it just felt almost like normal, and that was so thrilling, as well as being in Venice, which is always nice.
Yes.
So maybe, I mean, they're very brave to have, and industrious actually, to have put their festival on. All the other festivals this year have either been cancelled or become virtual.
Right.
So good for them. Good for them.
It's very hard. I know TIFF, Toronto Film Festival, is starting, I believe, today, and they're doing virtual. I think they're also doing in person too in Toronto. But it's so. I think so. Yeah, I believe so that they are. Because yes, I did read that they're doing mask. Originally, they were saying mask would be optional, and now they came out, I think yesterday or the day before, saying now they're mandatory, that you must wear a mask in the theater and everything.
Yeah, sure.
So they are doing it.
That was definitely the same in Venice. Everyone was wearing masks the whole time.
Did they do social distancing because of the seating in the theaters? But when you said you also interviewed with press, was everybody practicing social distancing?
Yes,
they
were. Everyone was practicing social distancing. Well, sort of. I mean, it's hard, isn't it?
It is.
I think probably think it was hard to maintain social distancing for everybody at all times. Is probably what I'd say.
Yeah. It is difficult, even for all of us, and not going to film festivals, which I adore going to.
Yeah.
Well, the Duke has been critically acclaimed. I mean, people are getting really good preliminary reviews for the Duke. So I'm looking forward to seeing that. Do you know when that might be released?
Not a clue. Not a clue. I mean, I just know that they'll wait until they think they can make some money out of it. They're not going to put it out into theaters where you can only have 20 or 30% of a house.
I know theaters in Europe have opened up before many of the theaters in the States have. Sort
of, not really. I mean, it's still very early days here, and it's certainly in England. I don't know what it's like abroad. I think Tenet did reasonably well here.
Yes,
that's the film that seems to be the kind of Rosetta Stone of the renaissance of cinema going. So let's hope that that's going to work. But a little film like Blackbird, I don't think it's going to be easy for people to get out and see art film for a while.
No.
Particularly if it's the sort of film that might attract a slightly older audience like Blackbird.
Yes,
they're going to be more fearful of leaving the house. So it's great that it's going to be easily accessible on VOD, and hopefully it'll get a good audience that way.
Oh, it's one that everybody should be seeking out. Sometimes, as I say to people, when I'm feeling down, I want to watch a sad movie, and they go, "Well, why?" Because I just want to get all the tears out, and
cathartic.
Right? Yes, it's very cathartic. It truly is. But this movie is a gem. I mean, it's a great cast, a really interesting story. I mean, too, the thought of again, we're not giving anything away of making that decision to end your life with dignity rather than allowing this debilitating disease to take over. I thought that it's a conversation that we all need to continue to have. I mean, it's one that's out there, but I think it's someone that's important, in today's world, even with everything that's going on, to have that discussion. I mean, for all of us should have that choice, I believe.
Well, listen, it's not a film that's politically polemical. It's not saying instantly go out and demand that euthanasia is legalized in your state, but it's very hard to come out of the film not thinking that what she's done is rather a glorious thing and rather the kind of euthanasia means good death, and I think her death is a good death.
And it's beautifully done. I mean, it's beautifully done. I mean, so many people are taken away, especially now with COVID, and people can't have their family members in the hospital with them, and how difficult that is.
Exactly. That must be terrible.
It's awful. And, to have these nurses and doctors having to be there and being the support system for the family. So this movie brings out the beauty of being able to choose how you want to die with dignity. So it's a beautifully done film, and I do hope people seek it out for sure. And as I said, you've directed some of my favorite movies. I just happened to watch Morning Glory the other day. I hadn't seen it in years, and I went, and I said, there, there you were. And Notting Hill is it's one that I own and that I have to watch at least once a year. It's one of my all-time favorite movies too. So you've directed some amazing movies. How has this? Do you have anything else after The Duke that you're working on? There's things that I'm looking at and reading, and there's something I'm writing, but I don't know when I don't know when people will start really getting back into making movies. I mean, maybe something in the spring. I don't know. It's hard to know. Hopefully. Yeah. Well, Roger, thank you so much for being on the show. It's been a pleasure. And I look forward to having you back on. And everyone, seek out The Blackbird on VOD. Thank you very much. Thanks a lot. You're very welcome. Thank you. Thank you all for listening.
Jan Price talks to the movers and shakers in the film business. The Jan Price Show, all about movies.